Welcome to The People I Know, a philosophical podcast with and about the diverse people I've met over the years as an African American female thinker, teacher, philosopher, dancer, and other titles. Today's guest is author, musician, and proponent of healthy masculinity, Richard Wright. I hope you enjoy.
Hi, my name is Richard Malcolm Wright, and I am a Jamaican New Yorker that lives in Florida. I like to identify as an intersectional Afrofuturist and liberationist. And there are many ways that I like to express myself creatively. I'm a DJ, I'm an author, a visual artist, and an educator that uses the arts to help people honor their own boundaries as well as the boundaries of others and pursue healthy masculinities and consent culture. Mhm. Hopefully in the pursuit of systems change as well.
Mm. Mm. Yes. And we met through a mutual friend. I believe that's how initially we came in contact with each other.
Yes, that's right. Yes, we met that was through Sky, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, that was, yeah, we met and we bonded over, being intellectuals in the arts, I believe,
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
like
And music, of
and
course.
music, yes. Music, yes. That event, was that the event that I DJ'd with my iPad? Was it that?
No, I've not ever witnessed you DJing live. No,
Okay.
I've never had the pleasure.
Okay. Because there was a get together that Sky had, and I had my iPad with me. Maybe it was, and he didn't realize I was DJing because
Maybe.
I had my tablet and she had Bluetooth, and I said, well, let me see if, and I had like some DJing equipment on my iPad. And I said, well, let me see if I can patch
Oh.
in. And I was like, oh, I can, and I started DJing, and I was just sitting on the couch. It's like, and I've never done this before, and people started dancing. Like, this is a great mix, and this guy's like, the guy on the couch is doing it right now.
Maybe that's right.
Like,
Yeah.
what? Oh, yeah. So, yeah, which is the only time I've actually ever, no, I've done that one more time, but just in a more chill situation. So,
Mm.
yeah, it was the first time I was like, this is crazy that I'm doing this. Oh, wow. Okay.
God bless technology.
Hmm. Yes, I've been
uh,
DJing since 1985. Started in Kingston, Jamaica, and me and the person who um, eventually became my sister's husband. We started teaching ourselves to DJ in Kingston in 1985, and I moved back to New York in 1988, discovered house music and so much more, and it just all took off from there. Yeah.
the first big question for this
Mhm,
season, so this is the Black people I know, the Black men I know.
mhm,
Why and when does it matter that you are Black? And
mhm,
what does being Black mean for you?
mhm. Why and when does matter the name black, and what does being black mean for me? Well, for me, it means having a very rich history of resiliency and um, my ancestors went through holocausts, and during these holocausts they still smiled and danced and sung and cracked jokes, and even today, like, all of these expressions make, like, the whole world is in marvel of our creativity, because that's how powerful it is. It's powerful enough to get us through holocausts, and the whole world can feel it and express it, um, um, feel how expressive it is and healing it is, or can be.
Mm.
Uh, let's see. Um, yeah, if we're the first people of planet Earth, I feel like it's a powerful, um, just space to occupy. And when I call myself an intersectional Afrofuturist, I mean, it's because um, like Afrofuturism takes it essentially is about envisioning Black people in the future, um, and it takes Black sci-fi and Black fantasy and folklore from the past and traditions from the past from the African diaspora and kind of molds it together to um, assess our present state and to dream and devise ways for a future, whether it's through um, fantasy or actual policy. Yes, and for me personally, as a person of Jamaican descent, my parents um, come from rural Jamaica. I was born in New York, but um, the legacy of the Maroons are in my blood, and the Maroons escaped slavery and went up into the hills. And when the British or the Spanish tried to go up into the hills to get them, um, they they used guerrilla warfare, which had never been seen by the West before.
Mm.
And so the redcoats would come up and into the hills, and they could be seen miles away. And Maroons would disguise themselves as trees and the earth, and they would just slaughter them, to surround them and slaughter them, and leave one soldier to go back and tell people at base camp that the hills came to life and killed everybody, that the hills are haunted,
Mm.
and all these things. And so that resiliency and that warrior spirit to remove oneself from uh, oppressive circumstances and build and defend your own agency.
Mm.
That, that's my bloodline. That's my
Mm.
so that is something that also um, kind of informs what I think about my blackness and blackness as a whole, and my Afrofuturism and things like that. Mhm.
Is there a time that being Black doesn't matter
Mm.
for you?
Um, well, we just had Martin Luther King's um, birthday celebration, and there I found this old article from 1965 where Martin Luther King went to Jamaica and he received the key for Kingston, key of the
Mm.
city, and he's quoted as saying, "I feel human in Jamaica,"
Mm.
and, and I think that's one time where I feel like being Black, quote unquote, doesn't matter, because when you're in a place where you can just feel like a human and you're not feeling like you have to look over your shoulder, because of racism and white supremacy. Not to say Jamaica is completely free of colonial stains and colorism
Mhm.
and other isms, but um, my parents moved me and my sister from New York to Jamaica for our formative years so that we could actually, one of the reasons was that we could grow up without these white supremacist messages
Mm.
and realities, Um, yeah, I didn't grow up being fearful for my life from police. I did there's so many things that I didn't experience because I was living in Jamaica.
Mm.
Um, um, so there is that, but then that's also a reason I would say simultaneously to say it doesn't matter, but at the same time, that is a reason why it does matter because
Mhm.
when I'm in, kind of like the legacy of Wakanda, when you're, when, there's this, this Black nation that's never been succumbed to colonialism and white supremacy and racism, that,
Mhm.
that you're just being, and to
Mhm.
just enjoy your Blackness and humanity in this really authentic way. So
Mhm.
it's kind of both. I forget which poem it is, but there's a poem that says, it's like to white folks where it's just like the first thing you have to do is forget that I'm black. The second thing you have to do is never forget that I'm black.
Like
I'll just leave it at that. So
yeah, I think you bring up one of the things that's you point to the complexities with
right.
Blackness,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to take a perspective from many of my white friends over the course of my lifetime, why someone might say something like, well, there's black on black crime, or
Mm-hmm.
if someone might be listening to this and might say, well, what's wrong if you're in a place like Jamaica? Like, why would there still be problems? It's like, now you're around your own people. But in this, with your particular example and your why you love and do Afrofuturistic whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
it's like we can't take away these these colonial
Right.
histories. We
Right.
can't take away all of these different histories that have created Black people
Mm-hmm.
as we know us.
Mm-hmm.
Can't take away the fears that you got living in the United States that you didn't have, or fears that you got living in Jamaica that you didn't get from here.
Right.
So I think it's really important in pointing to those complexities that
Mm-hmm.
underlie, like, yes, we're brown, but there's other there's other shit going on as
Oh yeah.
well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and there's class stuff in Jamaica. I mean, gender norms are extremely rigid, and so are
Mm-hmm,
sexuality norms. So
mm-hmm,
there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on.
mm-hmm,
It's just not gangs of white cops, prowling for black folks. It's not
mm-hmm.
going on, and other kind of similar manifestations of white supremacy. Yeah.
Hopefully this slides into my next question
Mm-hmm.
on philosophy and critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
You can take one or both. How are these relevant in your life, either
Mm-hmm.
personally or professionally?
Mm-hmm.
Philosophy and critical thinking.
Yeah. Well, in my work as an educator, around the consent culture, bystander intervention, and healthy masculinity. So yeah, intersectional feminism and anti-patriarchy work is pretty central to uh, yeah, my work and a lot of my um, politics. So um, and which comes from Black feminism. Um, so it does integrate race in there and not just gender, but it's a good catch-all to just say, yeah, intersectionality. Um, yeah, and I do think it's important. I do see patriarchy as um, the the biggest internal stumbling block for Black liberation.
Mm,
Uh, there's like a book that I recommend on. So my website is Richard M as in Malcolm, Wright, WRIGHT.com. And there's a resources page. And there's a book on there, How We Get Free, which is a kind of retelling of the beginning of the Black feminist movement in the United States. And it just kind of shows that on one side, Black women and both straight and gay um, were experiencing, on one side, the white feminists not really taking Black women struggles seriously, like
mhm,
things like sterilization that white women were not going through, and they're like, no, this is an
mhm,
issue for Black and brown women. It's like, and they're like, well, how about voting rights? And I think yeah, voting rights are important too. But so there was not being taken seriously on that end,
mhm,
and then on the other end, um, Black nationalist um, organizations um, were mostly very masculine,
mm,
very male run, and would often uh, vote against the interests of Black women, for instance, around reproductive rights, and
Mhm.
because they were very Black nationalist, was kind of thing was like, well, um, we need Black women to reproduce soldiers for the cause, and it's
Mm.
just like, and Black women like, well, could I get some say in that? Like, could I, so, yeah, I might not want to be breeding soldiers right now. That's it's
Yeah.
um, so Black women were just like, wow, if anybody's going to advocate for us, it looks like it's going to have to be us, and boom, and it started, and it just it's and they have a kind of central kind of document that kind of essentially says that, well, if you, once you have advocated for the freedom of Black women, then everybody will essentially be free, because in order to free Black women, you have to actually topple all the rest of everything
Mm.
that's blocking us from freedom. And
Mm.
so that's pretty much, that's where I'm at. That's like, so I'm down. So, and that was um CRC. It's the name of a raid that Harriet Tubman made, a successful raid that she made, and
Okay.
they specifically wanted to name it after an action and not a person. They wanted it to
Mm.
be action oriented and not like Harriet Tubman. They're like, let's call it after an action, which I also really liked. So yeah,
Mm.
so that those are um, some of the philosophy and like politics that I'm pretty passionate about. Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, so of course, I want to get into more things that you focus on instead of kind of being in this abstract, like
Mm-hmm.
critical thinking tenets. So I've had a couple of your articles that you've written
Mm-hmm.
saved in my phone for a while, and one of them was from a few years ago
Mm-hmm.
about Black Panther and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the levels of masculinity
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
presented.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in looking over that again, I see that you put basically 5 points
Mm-hmm.
for how we can create, how healthy masculinity can be created.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can just read them here.
Oh, please,
Um,
please. Mm-hmm.
so there's accountability,
Mm-hmm.
there's trust, respect, and listening to Black women, empathy,
Mm-hmm.
emotional intelligence, and sharing of power.
Mm-hmm.
And so I bring this up. I want to bring this up at this point because when
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about thinking critically about
Mm-hmm.
something that is very effective,
Mm-hmm.
masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a lot of conversations and seen a lot about this in the last year or two, thank goodness, about unhealthy, toxic masculinity and how that has played out over the course of generations. I really enjoy that you've laid out just 5 really clear things specifically about kind of like Black masculinity, because you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about this
Mm-hmm.
in a Black context. But
Right.
if you could maybe speak a little bit more about this and how critical thinking plays into
Mm-hmm.
your work when it comes to healthy masculinity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, yeah, I do think it's important as a Black man to um, not just dialogue with masculinity as a huge universal kind of thing, but to dialogue about Black masculinity or Black masculinities, because
Mm.
you know, there's no like, you know, monolith that is Black masculinity. So I I really enjoy. That's probably my flagship piece at this point. I'm very proud of it. It brings um, intersectional feminism and Afrofuturism together in this perfect marriage. And well, let me first. I want to talk about something that's actually not in there. Um, that's about um, Black masculinity and um, defense of uh, Black male perpetrators. So
Mm.
um, which I guess could be put under listen to Black women. You know, we could probably file it under that.
Right, right. Unfortunately, yeah, that is maybe one of the few things that wasn't addressed in Black Panther. So,
right, like,
but it's
right,
very
right,
relevant in Black
right,
communities for
right.
sure.
And it could be because I mean the um because Killmonger actually was violent with every woman he encountered.
Mm,
The only woman he did not harm or kill that he encountered was the Queen Mother, and who knows if he was close. He was just like, "Hey, Auntie," but
yeah.
who knows if he was close enough if he'd have like harmed her as well.
Right.
Um,
Right.
um, so accountability for um, black male violence to women. Um, so in the book, Black Progressive Masculinities, there's a paper in there that helped me contextualize it. 'Cause, like, what is this? Like, because even like Cosby, he literally admitted to drugging women in a deposition, and there's still people like he was crucified. And it's like, what? I'm like, stop saying that. No, he's a serial rapist.
Hmm.
Why are we defending him? And same for R. Kelly. It's like R. Kelly, and like, it's like we know it's public information. We know that he married Aaliyah when she was
Hmm.
15,
Hmm.
and we all saw like these videotapes of him. Like, whether we saw it, we know that it's public knowledge that of
Hmm.
him like urinating on children. Like, what more do you need? You
Hmm.
know? And So what this article, um, what it talks about is that, which is very real, is that back in the days that kind of like black men were being Emmett Tilled, you could say, for like nothing,
Hmm.
um, and it became like kind of like a mission. Like anytime a black man was being, because very easily a white woman could just be like, oh, he looked at me wrong, oh, he raped me, oh, and it didn't have to be true, and very often wasn't. It was just, you know, them expressing their Karen power
Hmm.
in most deadly ways, and they could always say something, and it could cause horrible harm to any black man at any time. Um,
Hmm.
so black community rallied around any black man that was accused of rape or flirting or anything like that. We'd
Hmm.
rally around them. And it reached a point that it's now a knee-jerk reaction. That it's just like, even when there's evidence that's like, oh no, he did it, that we've been doing it for centuries.
Hmm.
We've been protecting black men because for centuries it was this white supremacist um, mechanism to kill black men,
Hmm.
and so now when this happens, even if it's by another black woman and not a white woman, that it's just like, no, this is a part of, there's this thing that's this ancient, not too ancient thing, but ancient enough thing, like, oh, this is a part of oppressing black men, and that we knee jerk into defending the black man. So
Hmm.
that's, and even though people of all cultures have this kind of you know rape culture, uh, defense of the perpetrator and questioning of the survivor. Like it's an even more hardwired thing for us because of this legacy.
Hmm.
Um, so that's something that's actually brought more compassion actually into it for me. Like, oh, yeah, this is coming from a place of you know historical trauma,
Hmm.
and you know so that's helpful for me, but yeah, um but we still do need to just like I'm exhausted from the amount of threads that I've talked to other black men, and it's okay, so Bill Cosby admitted to doing it, like,
Hmm.
we don't have to defend him just because he's black.
Hmm.
We can defend Mumia. Why don't we like put our energy there? Or like, why don't we get
Hmm.
Mumia out of jail as opposed to Bill Cosby? It's like Bill Cosby, I understand, was like a father figure to a lot of us. It was
Yeah.
extremely disappointing, to say the least. But he's still a serial rapist,
Right. Yeah.
and and yes, we do need for Woody Allen and all these white um, like perpetrators to also, yeah, but because they are not, but that's not a reason to excuse
Mm-hmm.
people who are wreaking havoc in our communities.
Mm-hmm.
That's like saying, you know, that black men should be able to sexually assault people like white men,
Mm-hmm.
which is not my idea of liberation at all.
Right.
So
Yeah.
um yeah.
I think that's really important
Mhm,
to um, well, there's the acknowledgement,
mhm,
there's the unpacking and revealing of what people are feeling deeply, because I certainly personally hadn't thought of it in that context. You know, I'm
mhm,
familiar and know about these histories,
mhm,
um, but that it certainly goes to explain a lot.
mhm,
So it's really useful to
mhm,
be able to name the thing that's going on, that's
mhm.
likely going on in many people, why they're clinging to this being their father figure, this being an
Right.
important person in our communities, and taking the next step to say, to acknowledge what has actually happened, what these people have actually admitted to doing,
Right.
what we actually see with our own eyes or read the
Mhm,
transcript of,
mhm, mhm,
so that we don't I don't know, shoot ourselves in the foot, do more
mhm,
damage of just letting these perpetrators, get off,
mhm,
um, without without punishment,
mhm.
which is so much more damaging. It all comes back to,
Right.
the people that they've done these harms against, these
Right.
Black women.
Right. Right.
But
Or and even the idea of punishment, like I'm still just like, I mean,
mm,
just to just have these folks removed from, the population so they're not hurting more people. I'm like,
yeah,
I'm not a big fan of the prison industrialized complex, but I don't know what next
other
thing is.
options.
I don't like, until we have other options. Like I don't know. I mean, I would love that. I mean, back in the days, we as a community, we'd all come together and we'd sit with the person and kind of
Mm,
and work things out and there are all these restorative and transformative justice collectives, but it's hard work, and I've been in a couple um, proceedings, but if the person that you're bringing into the circle for accountability, if they just change their mind and like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore, there's
yeah.
nothing to make them do it. There's, you're trying to do something so that that's outside of involving police and prisons and everything. And yeah, it's we have a bit of a way to go.
So what advice
Hmm.
do you have for Black men
Hmm.
to um, ensure that they are moving in the direction of being healthy
Hmm.
with their masculinity?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
If they know that they're not perpetrators, they're not out here
yeah.
doing R.
Right,
Kelly and
right,
Bill Cosby type
right,
things.
right, right.
But they maybe don't know whether they're
Mm-hmm.
doing some other things that,
Mm-hmm.
they're not being accountable, they're not trusting the Black women in their lives. What advice or what words can you kind of give to them?
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like a lot of us as men are socialized to not um, be in touch with our feelings. To black men, or the men that boys don't cry. Um, and there's and patriarchy like really devalues anything feminine, and so um, anything that is considered feminine in our communities are things that black men are definitely not supposed to do, and so I feel like to just find a way to just feel more comfortable with ourselves. I think we all need therapy, um, and that's something that black men notoriously do not do, because it's feminized as well. It's like
Mm,
so, therapy, you know. Um,
mm-hmm.
but I think that would be a really big step, because there are things that, a lot of the things that happen um, are because we're not um, processing our feelings. Like we're just allowing ourselves to be angry and um, have some happiness, once in a while. But
Mm,
more complex feelings of sadness, fear, are like um, find spaces where you can feel safe to say to somebody, "This made me sad. I'm really sad about this," or I'm scared of this. I mean,
mm.
we got rap songs. I ain't never scared, and
Right.
like you're not supposed to be scared of anything. But courage is moving and doing things in spite of the fact that you're scared. It doesn't mean that you're not scared. It means that you're going to do it anyway, even though you are
Mm,
scared. And for us to kind of reframe these things in our feelings about what masculine strength is. Like masculine strength is like, when your boys are like talking really terribly about women or LGBTQ folks, will just be like, I'm not really about that, and
mm,
I mean, like that's masculine strength, to just really reframe strength. Um, the masculine strength is just to be really comfortable with who you are, and even if it's different from the crowd, it can just be like, whether you're gay, whether you don't like sports, whatever it is,
yeah.
you can be yourself and allow yourself to be yourself, and you'll find like for me, like when I was a teen, um, like I felt like one of the bonding rituals that boys would kind of have to do with other boys is to denigrate women and
Mm,
LGBTQ folks. And after a while, I was like, it's like I don't like this. Like I was like,
mm-hmm.
this, like, and I'm like, wait, so we like girls, right? Is it we like girls? This is this this doesn't feel like we like girls, um 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 and at some point I couldn't do it anymore, um and so most of my friends are either female or queer, um and the male, like the cis male friends that I do have, they have to
Mm-hmm.
be male friends that aren't questioning how I embody my masculinity. They're
Mm.
not like they're not gonna, oh, what you're gonna put a banana in your mouth without cutting it into little pieces? Oh, that's gay or whatever. Oh, okay, we're not gonna be able to hang out. Like
Yeah.
that's really silly. Um, even if I was gay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so yeah, so
Yeah.
getting in touch, allowing yourself to have your authentic feelings and find spaces where it's okay to be yourself, and um, yeah, and read some. I would say read The Will to Change by Bell
Mm,
Hooks. That's a really great place to start. And I have a lot of
okay.
resources on my page too, but that's a good place to start.
Thank you.
Mhm, mhm,
Switching gears just slightly, but sticking with critical thinking for another
mhm,
moment.
mhm.
When it comes to Afrofuturism,
Yes.
I mean, I see very clearly
Mhm,
how critical thinking plays in with this. I mean, it's like that's what it is.
mhm,
But if you can speak, perhaps speak just a little bit about the importance of Afrofuturist writings and
mhm,
movies and just
mhm.
arts for everyone, but you can
Right,
speak from your perspective,
right.
the
Yeah.
importance of it.
Mhm. Yes. Well, I'm really glad to see. I mean, I really celebrate Black Panther, the movie, because it really changed the game, where Afrofuturism went from this underground kind of phenomenon to the mainstream, and it was like a global thing. Like people were wearing the costumes and making dances, and it was just it was amazing, and it was, like I said before, like celebrating this idea where it's just like imagine a place where Black people never knew colonialism, never knew racism, and we developed to the point where we were the most developed country on the planet, you know, and we were powerful, and we respect our women, and in the comics, like the Dora Milaje, the all female guard, like they're like queer, allowed to be themselves, you know. Um, it's you know, quite an utopian Black society in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think that was really important to just have a vision of that, you know, that we're able. I'll share another story. So Michelle Nichols played Lieutenant Uhura on the original Star Trek in the 70s, and um, at some point she became a bit not so satisfied with her role, and um, she started to think about leaving Star Trek, and rumor went around that she was thinking about leaving, and she got a phone call. She got a phone call from a dedicated Trekkie, and, whose name was Martin Luther King Jr. and and he was like, "We need you to stay on, please. This is the first time we're able to see ourselves in a light that you know we've never seen it ourselves before." Because at that point, the first Black actress to be on TV playing something other than uh, like like an addict, or, or just like a slave, or some powerful, someone not powerful, as opposed to being on the helm of like this international spaceship, you know, communicating with different life forms around the universe, you know, and so
It's
and
very
so
grand.
you know, um, so she stayed
Mm.
and went on to do another Star Trek series where she was the commander of the vessel, and she went on to, in real life, form a uh, uh, like an organization in association with NASA, and where she, um, which brought women, specifically was a program for women to become astronauts,
Mm.
and so they're literally women that became astronauts because of Lieutenant Uhura, you know, and
Mm.
Black women as well, um, and so it's like she took that, like so from this fictional Afrofuturist kind of existence that
Mm.
she actually impacted the real world in more than
Mm.
one way, you know,
Mm.
and um, so yeah, the idea of being able to see ourselves in other ways through our own lenses um, is powerful. It's
Mm.
very powerful to just see ourselves in the future. Because all of these, I mean, I'm a big sci-fi geek, and I kind of have learned to kind of inject myself into the narratives, but it's like, yeah, so many of these, it's like, so in your vision of the future, I guess there's no Black people. All I see are white people, you know, and
Right.
and it's this kind of quiet message, and yeah, I think it's powerful for children to see. I love the idea that Black kids are growing up with Black Panther and Raising Dion and a Twinkle in Time. What is it? A Wrinkle in Time, and just
Mm.
there are all of these things now where you know where before it was Hollywood had this kind of like, oh well, you know, a black led and black cast movie that's not going to make money, and blah blah blah,
Mm-hmm.
this whole capitalistic mythology, and then
Mm-hmm.
as soon as Black Panther rigged into so hugely, now people are clamoring for these stories. So
Yeah.
it's great. I mean, it's I mean, capitalism sucks, but that's great. That part is good.
Capitalism sucks, but that's great.
Yeah.
Now it you know, there's so many places to go with this from here. So many. But I think that is really key for some people to see
Mhm,
or hear. Perhaps as an adult, if I had kids, or it's
mhm,
so hard to take myself out of this context, but I guess as an adult I could see and be a little tired of, oh well, maybe like the new Annie, she was hired because she was cast because she was Black, and we need to
mhm,
change gears. But then as soon as we see how children
mhm,
see these characters and see
right.
these stories, then all
Mhm,
of that really flies out the window.
mhm,
It we see on the one hand that, Black, brown, and white and everything else, they don't care because it's just a fun thing to watch. But
mhm,
then also when we look at the Black and brown children, they
mhm,
get very excited about seeing themselves. So it's
mhm, mhm.
it's really important to kind of like, well, let's not do this just because we're stubborn,
Right, 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 right,
and
right.
let's
Mhm,
acknowledge the things that are
mhm,
going on so that
mhm.
we've got these other options of a much more blossomed future. And then
Right.
from our perspective as Black people, like we can see, you're a sci-fi geek, as you just said, and
Mhm,
so you're used to imagining all these kind of wild fantastical
mhm,
lands and sceneries. And for
mhm,
people who aren't deeply entrenched in those worlds on a regular basis, just
mhm,
seeing a Black Panther, or seeing, some child that's playing some traditionally white role, just
mhm,
walking down the street, that
mhm,
could be all they need to be like, oh yeah, that
mhm,
is an option.
mhm.
Because they're not used to thinking creatively, they're not used to seeing so vividly
Right.
in the world, or
Mhm,
dreaming in those
mhm,
kinds of ways.
mhm.
And personally, that's what I think, what I love about Afrofuturism, the
Right.
Afrofuturistic stuff. It's just like, I mean, I'm a creative person, I'm an artist, but there's things that I just hadn't even considered, like
Mm,
a world where colonialism and slavery did not ever exist. Like, wait,
right.
let me sit with that.
Right, 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 right.
So,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, it's
Right.
really helpful
Yeah,
in
yeah.
those ways.
Mm-hmm. And and
Um,
and
mhm,
Afrofuturistic, like the theory gets really deep. Like there's because a lot of things like there are prevalent science fiction themes in the mainstream, like alien abduction,
mhm,
and and from an Afrofuturist point of view, it's like, well, that's a really ancient and very real, like, metaphor for us. It's like
mm,
like ships did come and abduct us, and
right.
that's real. If it's not just like, oh, that's something that did happen to us.
Yeah.
Um, and there's a book called The Hero with an African Face, which is um, uh, like an African-centered look at Bill Campbell's A Hero with a Thousand Faces, I think it is, or 100 faces, I forget what it is, but
Mm,
which is about world mythology, and um, Bill Campbell's version about world mythology and the story of the hero's journey that's prevalent in so many mythologies, like the the call to the mission, and going forth to um, the difficult place to get the thing that you need, and then to bring it
mhm,
back to the people. So that's like Lord of the Rings. That's like so many. The hero's journey is like a
mhm,
very old story that's told over and over again. And Bill Campbell did not see African mythology as worthy enough to include in his treatise of world mythologies and the hero's story, but Clyde Ford made a book that is
mm,
incredible, and um, brings all of these different African myths and folklores together that kind of paints that journey, and then he pulls back to, it's like, and the story of African Americans is this is the story of the hero's journey that yet has yet to be completed. The story of the hero's journey for Black people throughout the diaspora, actually, not just the United States, starts in Africa, and the call to the journey, it was not voluntary. It's being, wrenched away from Africa to the plantations, and
Mm,
so the plantations is like the Mordor, the horrible place that you have to get the thing that you can take back. And so we have survived the Holocaust. We've survived the fires of Mordor, and we're just waiting for the final chapters. Like, so are we taking
mm,
something back to Africa, or is it something that we are going to awaken in ourselves?
mm.
So these are like the questions that we ask. You know, yeah. So that we can go all over the place. I
Yeah.
love Afrofuturist theory.
Oh man,
Mhm.
I need some more time with that. That was the hero with an
Yeah,
African face.
hero of the African face. Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Whew. Um, so the
Mhm.
final official question that I
Mhm.
have for you is
Mhm.
regarding
Mhm.
existential dilemmas. And it's a
Oh.
big question,
Mhm.
but you can kind of address it however you'd like. If you have any advice for people who find themselves in
Mhm.
existential crises, have these dilemmas,
Mhm.
your relationship, how you deal with existential dilemmas,
Mhm.
maybe how you don't.
Right. 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 Hmm.
However is relevant for you these
It's
days.
so amazing that I'm of the age now where people like, so how do you deal with your existential crisis and dilemma? I don't know what you're talking about. Um, well, I I feel like 2020 was kind of like tempered us in a way where a lot of us were kind of forced to figure out something, um, and that may have helped make things clearer around existential crisis because that it was a crisis, but it's like, okay, we're still here, and
Mm,
I realized X, Y, and Z, and I learned A, B, and C. Um, existential crisis is not fun, but
mm,
I do believe it will pass, and that if we think about what we love, and um, also not take ourselves too seriously, um, that it can be easier. Um, Let me think about it a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, like this. Okay, like for the when all of the planets were aligning on what was it, December 16th or 18th or something like that. Um,
yeah.
um, like me and a friend, we went out um, and it was a beautiful starry sky where we were, and we could see Saturn and Jupiter, and she took out her star app, and we could see all the planets aligned like underneath the Earth and everything. There's everything lined up, and we set our intentions to that. It's like, yeah, let's be aligned with what we want, and
Yeah.
so we talked about what we love, for a while, and I said, maybe that will make things clearer once we're clear about what we love and feel passionate about, then
Mm,
maybe that can help us feel more in alignment with steps forward, or a new something to aim for, so a trajectory to aim for, like
mhm.
some kind of amalgam of all these things that we love, you know. Um, um, I feel lucky that I feel that I have an idea of my purpose, and um, um, but if I didn't, I would relish even more in exercise of just concentrating on what I love.
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's so simple. So many of
Mm-hmm.
these things that are coming up
Mm-hmm.
and these conversations are so simple. So many things that you've brought up are just
Mm-hmm.
painfully simple. But so true. I mean, I was setting intentions as well for 2021
Mm-hmm.
with in a business setting with a business coach.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the best exercises was just considering reflecting on what it is that I want to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that it, I could get down on myself for thinking, well, why hadn't I done this before? Why didn't I just sit and think about what I want to do? Who wakes up in the morning and says, today I'm going to do a bunch of things that I don't want to do?
Right.
You know? I mean, we should be
Right.
doing the things that we want to
One's
do,
too.
but
Mm-hmm.
but I like how you're framing this is
Mm-hmm.
it will pass if we find ourselves in these crises, if we
Mm-hmm.
find this dilemma of not knowing who we are or what we're doing. Perhaps we can just focus on what it is that we want,
Mm-hmm.
who we want to be, what we want to be doing,
Mm-hmm.
and in time that crisis will pass.
That's right. That's right. Mm-hmm.
That's just life.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, so my boyfriend, he collects vinyl. He is teaching
Mm-hmm.
me so many things about vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
And of course we bond over music because music is life. And so his questions to you were, what equipment do you use?
Mm-hmm.
And then your favorite show that you've been to,
Favorite show
or
that
or best show that you've been to. And if, oh gosh, I'm going to get this wrong. If you could only have one record, one album, what would it be? These are ridiculous questions.
Oh my.
Start with the easy
Okay.
one. What
Okay.
equipment
So,
do you use?
well, I mean, I definitely, for like decades used Techniques 1200s turntables, um, and went through many different mixers, um, Pioneers, Vestax, um, uh, yeah, um, but after decades of hauling around crates of records, I mean, I was like one of the last DJs in my cadre of of DJs that was like had a hand truck and was like "Ugh," like had this
Mm.
like 5 crates of records, taking them everywhere, like records that weigh more than me. And at some point, I remember going to a doctor, and the doctor like checked out my body and was like, "What do you do for exercise?" I gets stumped, and I said, "Oh, I DJ," you know, and he said, "What?" He said, "What do you do for your body when you're DJing?" And I said, "Oh, well, I have a record crate that seals and it has a handle on top, and you can just lift it, and it can when it's packed solid, it's it's close to I'd say maybe 80 pounds, and I would hold on to it and just go "Huh!" and do this kind of this kind of twist movement, and
Oh.
pick it up, and then and he said, yeah, because your whole right side of your body is just like there's like a muscular like thing that's going on that's just on one side of the body, and like the other side's like wow, and and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what it is. Um, and it's like, yeah, you need to even that out somehow. And um, and then there was a point where um, eventually, like one day or one night, I was lifting records and like, ow, that's my back did a not good thing, and
Mm.
I was kind of on the bed for like for like 2 days, and then
Mm.
okay, I feel normal again, and I went to the doctor again, and the doctors checked it, and they're like, yeah, you should stop um, DJing. You should stop playing records. You should find other ways to play music besides using records. And I was like, not an option. And that's why. And the very next time I DJ'd, my back did it again, and then I was in bed for like 4 or 5 days, and I was like, okay, wow.
Gotta do something else. Other
So
options.
so I went digital, and like very reluctantly, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, and I had to like send like a letter to like the DJ world, and like, so your boy's going digital. My back was is not having it anymore. So,
Yeah.
so unless people feel like sending me like some like an intern that's going to carry me my records everywhere I go, and literally somebody took that seriously and sent somebody, and then
Ah,
that person flaked, and and which made me feel worse about stuff, because literally I was stranded somewhere with a bunch
yeah.
of record crates that I couldn't pick up,
Mm.
and I had to like beg somebody to help me get home with records and carry records into my house. It was like, oh, so
Not
so
cool.
yeah, um, yeah,
Did you
so that,
transfer? Did you find a way to transfer many of your favorites,
yes,
many of the
yes, I
best
did,
things?
yes, yes, um, and and I still, what I would just do is that there's some records that are just you just got to bring,
Mm-hmm.
and so I would have like the lion's share of my music. I would bring digitally, and I would just bring it like a knapsack that's like not like 80 pounds or anything like that, just like a
Yeah.
couple, like a dozen records, and
Okay.
that I really like, and that I'll be fine on my back, um, and yeah, so I use Pioneer controllers, and so
Okay.
just yeah, and which are super light, and yeah, and it's a whole new world.
Best show that you've been to?
So is that that's asking the best concert I've attended, the best show that
Yes. Best live concert that you've attended. If you can narrow it down to two.
listen, I wrote something on Facebook and tried to narrow it down to 30. So
Oh gosh. Okay.
uh, I mean, I've seen Stevie Wonder, I've seen Prince, I've seen Grace Jones, I mean,
Yeah.
it's Massive Attack. I mean, it's just like Jane's
Yeah. Okay.
Jane's Addiction, Bad Brains. Like, I mean, it's just like there's this. I mean, if I just liked one Tribe Called Quest, if I mean if I like maybe just one genre of music, that would be easier to answer.
Right.
But
Yeah.
that you're asking me out of all the concerts. I once walked through not Central, Washington Square Park when I was living in New York, and Herbie Hancock was in the middle of the park, the grand piano, just giving a free performance. That was life changing.
Wow.
Like, because I am classically trained, and 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 they do something with rulers, or just like they put it like they're like, okay, and just
Mm-hmm.
and don't move your wrists,
Mm.
and you're like that. And Herbie was using the piano like uh, a percussion instrument. He was like, ding, 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 and I was like, oh my God, like that. I didn't learn that. That I didn't learn. Oh my God. And it was amazing. So I mean, we could go
Yeah.
on and on and on and on. And that's all live music. We're not even getting into DJ stuff. Um,
Yeah. and as far as vinyl goes, are there any, probably about the same answer,
Pretty much.
any actual vinyl that you will never part with?
My Well, I guess the easiest answer is that so the first album that was my first favorite album ever was Stevie Wonder's Song in the Key of Life, and um, there's always a copy of that not far away.
Mm.
Oh, it was always in a crate when I'm going somewhere, and so yeah, I mean that's a little easier just because it's my first love, that album. I could go into others. I mean, I have like a signed, what do you call it? Diggable Planets album, and that was so Diggable Planets concert. I mean, yeah, I mean,
Yeah. I'm gonna do another season where it's the musicians I know, and we're just just talking music for hours. Thank you. Thank you. I've taken up enough of your time today.
Oh, this has been great. It's been wonderful.
I really appreciate everything that you've shared and your energy as well. Are there any last things you'd like to tell the world?
Well, I want to ask, who's on your earrings? I can't quite make it.
Yeah, so it is Huey P. Newton.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
A woman who lives in the Bay, who lives in Oakland, she made these. I got them probably 6 or so years ago, and
oh, wow.
yeah. Yeah, and for him, Huey Newton and the many-layered onion. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay,
Richard.
you too. Okay,
Thank you again.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.